So I'm going to take a little bit different direction. I'd like to find out, field nutrition. We've got a lot going on at our site in terms of telling people, about supplements and how to train and, and all those things. And you obviously are one of the main people that we sponsor. Can you tell us a little bit about your day-to-day training, how that goes, what you do?
I'll have a pre-fight will be, if I'm not training for a fight, it's obviously going to be a little different than the weeks leading right up to a fight. But when I don't have a fight in the near future, I'm focusing a lot more on strength training, building muscle, getting more powerful, and maintaining my cardiovascular. Whereas I get closer to a fight, that switches. I won't lift weights for 10 days or 2 weeks before a fight, and I'll focus primarily on just getting my cardio, through the roof, and making sure all my technical stuff is in check. But we do the technique and skill training year-round. That's something you can never stop doing. You need to be constantly improving in those areas. But like I said, when I'm not training for a fight, I'm going to be taking in a lot more calories. My protein is going to be through the roof, trying to build muscle and get a lot stronger in preparation for those fights. So each time I step into the octagon, hopefully, if I've done things right, I'll be getting bigger and stronger and bring a better package to fight each fight.
The one thing that's really curious about the UFC is that, it's the one sport where really there's just so many avenues that you have to be well-rounded in. I mean, you look at any comparable sport and almost everything is a skill position, and you can't really say that for the UFC. How do you meet the challenge of having to understand so many different styles, and how do you train for that?
Well, I'm fortunate that I have, central Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is one of the best wrestling states in the country. There's great wrestlers all over the place in Pennsylvania, so I'm fortunate that I've got a great bunch of guys in the room that know how to wrestle. And like I said, training with Marcus Davis in Maine, he's a great boxer. He's a great ground guy. He's helped me out a lot with my striking. But it's that ability to be open-minded and travel. You've got to go places. You've got to travel to see different looks and see different styles. And you got to be willing to do that too. You're only going to get so good training in one place. You're going to have to go and see the pure jiu-jitsu guys or the pure boxers or the different styles of striking that are out there. You need guys that's all they do. You need to go train with them and then implement it into your game plan.
Do you think that there's one particular style that's more dominant than any other?
It's hard to say because guys have so much stuff blended together. You might look at a guy in the UFC and say, oh, that's pure Muay Thai, when in fact, it's Thai and traditional boxing and everything that he's mixed together. So to say that there's any one style that's really dominant, I would have a hard time putting a finger on it.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for me too. What was your first real fight like?
My first real fight, the biggest rush of my life. I think that's also partly why what got me so hooked is just the pure adrenaline factor of walking into a ring or a cage and knowing that you're going to be fighting a guy in front of a huge crowd. So there's definitely a lot of adrenaline involved in it. And I still get that every fight. It's still a huge rush for me. Obviously, the past 2 fights I've had, the crowds are very large. The last fight was in Mandalay Bay in front of 17,000 people. So, just the electricity that are in those buildings with that many people, cheering and going crazy. It's an amazing feeling. I can't really even describe the feeling.
So, what is actually going through your head when you're out there?
I try to stay as focused as possible. It's difficult at times to block out the crowd noise and whatnot, but I just try to get in there and really go on autopilot. If you've prepared right and done everything you're supposed to leading up to the fight, you can ideally you're running on autopilot, so you don't even have to think in there, and you're just doing the moves and techniques that you've instilled in yourself.
Have you ever been caught in a position where you felt like, if I don't get out of this really soon, it's going to be over with?
Not yet. I'm sure that day will come, but so far in my fighting career, I haven't been in a position where I was in a lot of trouble. I've been hit a few times pretty hard, haven't been knocked out or anything like that yet. And I've stayed in pretty good position as far as jiu-jitsu wise. I've never been caught in a submission. So far so good. I haven't been in a lot of trouble yet, but it'll definitely happen sooner than later because that's just the way fighting goes.
Yeah, it seemed like in your last fight, there was that moment where you just went in for the kill.
Yeah.
Do you recognize that moment when it happens and then you just move?
Yeah, and it's that's another thing that I've been blessed with. I think I can anyway. You can judge when somebody's hurt. Like I knew I hit him hard, especially he dropped to a knee when I hit him in the fight. And I knew right then that he was hurt pretty bad, and that's when I moved in and really started throwing an onslaught of strikes at him. But that's something you definitely need to be able to recognize, because some guys will play possum. You'll hit them pretty hard, and they'll fake their hurt, and some guys will rush in and then get tagged. But if you watch my last fight, I hit him and knew he was hurt, but I sized him up for a second before I rushed in. I mean, you can tell looking at a guy when he's hurt bad. They kind of have that glossy look in their eyes and whatnot. So
the deer caught in the headlights.
Exactly. You need to be able to recognize that.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting, and then it just ends so quickly after that. When it happens, what did that feel like to you when you won that? When that happened after you took him down?
Well, finishing an opponent is the best feeling in the world. That's like all your training and preparation has come together, and you execute a game plan the way you wanted to. So that's the best feeling in the sport, is when you can end a fight. I really don't like letting fights go to judge's decision. I've only had one go to decision with Vladimir Matyshenko, and I lost that fight. It was a close fight, and some people say it could have gone either way, but it went to decision. I wasn't happy with that. I ended up losing. So the way I train hard. I train to finish every fight that I'm in. I'm looking to knock the guy out or submit him. So
do you think you can go? Do you think you're in the kind of condition that you can go a full 3 rounds and still finish with some wind and some strength?
Absolutely. We train fighting usually 7 or 8 5 to 7 minute rounds. So my training is far beyond that 3 to 5 minute rounds, and I feel really strong throughout my entire workout. So the whole point is we don't want it to go to decision, but we're prepared to fight 3 hard rounds if we have to.
I think that's one thing that you see in the UFC, is that some of these guys, they get to the 3rd round, they get really tuckered out, and then it slows it down. And I think, to me, that's one of the knocks on boxing, is just that's what happens after 5 rounds. You see 2 guys that can barely stand up, and they're barely even fighting for the next 10 rounds.